Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christophe Dickès. I am French, sorry. I wanted to do this presentation yesterday night because I think my English is better with a glass of wine, but Barry didn't want. Then I will present with Nikki Daniel from Moreover an update industry about copyright and content. I am in charge of the copyright for Kantar Media, and I am the head commissioner of the FIBEP Copyright Commission. And then I have to apologize the absence of Don Conway, who is the EMEC head commissioner. And then, as you know, with her actuality with Vocus, she stayed in Chicago. Then I would like to present during this workshop, firstly, as a first step, I would like to present this year as a decisive year. And that this decisive year makes that we have decided to collaborate between EMEC and FIBEP with EU decision makers. Nikki will present in a third step the right knowledge exchange that we have relaunched. And finally, I will give you an update about the international content licensing that the PDLN, the Press Database Licensing Network, wants to create. I was in Madrid for the PDLN Congress last week. So, what about this decisive year? You know, I work on copyright for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. Before Kantar Media, I worked with Press Index on copyright, and this is the first time I see such year. You know, 2014 is really a decisive year. Why? Because the European Court of Justice took 2 decisions in 2 cases which concerns directly our activity. The first case, of course, is the Svensson case. You know, I imagine that you know Retriever. Retriever is a media monitoring and evaluation company. And Svensson is the name of a journalist, a Swedish journalist. And he was a part of a group of journalists who decided to sue Retriever because Retriever used links in their platforms. So the European Court decision had to answer 3 questions. The first question was, is sending a hyperlink required copyright payment? The second question was, is there a difference between free and limited access? Limited access is just paywall. And finally, the last question was, can the article appear in another website, or shall it appear directly in Retriever platform? According to the European Court decision, for the first question, they answer, no, sending hyperlinks doesn't require the authorization. The second question, this decision doesn't apply to paywall content. It concerns only free content. And finally, this decision applies to link, framing, and inline linking. Of course, framing and inline linking are very important. What is inline linking? For example, you are on your Facebook profile, you put a YouTube video, you are on your Facebook, you don't know that this is a YouTube video, the user won't know that this is a YouTube video, but this is on your profile, this is on the Facebook environment. So it means that we can integrate articles in our own environment. And a European state member can provide a different definition than the above. First case. Svensson case concerned provider side. The decision covers the commercial exploitation, and it's very important because we don't have a lot of decision about commercial exploitation. So it's not only the private exploitation, which means we can all benefit from this decision in our business. What about the customer side? Svensson, provider side. PRCA, Meltwater against NLA, is a decision about the customer side. The Svensson case was about sending hyperlinks. The Meltwater PRCA against NLA case is about the temporary copy made by our client. When he clicks on the link, he receives from a provider. Let's see the history. The NLA took the view that Meltwater and its customers were required to obtain authorization from the copyright holders for respectively providing and receiving the media monitoring service. Meltwater, we all know that Meltwater accepted to sign a web database license. So the question was, does a media monitoring or evaluation company end user need a license to read articles on the newspapers, on websites, on screen? Does browsing and viewing articles online require an authorization? And the answer, we all know that it's no, because the end user makes only a temporary copy in the cache memory and on the screen of the computer. This is a revolution. And a temporary copy doesn't require authorization. What are the conclusions of the two cases? Well, I have an extract of The Guardian. I haven't paid copyright on it. The Francis Davey, an independent barrister, said to The Guardian, I think this decision, it's a good thing, because it makes it clear that browsing lawful material on the web is not potential infringement. But I don't think we have reached the end of the story. Why? You know, just after the Svensson case, the NLA decided to write a press release about the Svensson case to explain that the Svensson case is a different case than Meltwater case, and they are right. And at the end of the press release, they wrote, well, if Meltwater win, then we will increase the price of the media monitoring fee. Second step, on the beginning of the week, last Monday, we had a conference call with the NLA, and they explained that a client, the Meltwater case concerns clients who read the article, just read the article on the screen. If they want to print it, if they want to save it, if they want to forward it, then they will have to pay. But in my point of view, it makes no sense because, you know, we are all on Twitter. We work with Twitter. We receive articles with Twitter. We click on the link in Twitter. We read the article. Sometimes we print it. Sometimes we save it. Sometimes we forward it. Sometimes we retweet it without paying any copyright. What about the publisher side? What are the solutions for the publisher side? I think the first solution for a publisher is to put more paywall, because the Svensson case, again, concerns only the free material. What can they do is to beef up their terms and conditions to forbid a monitor company to monitor the content. But it will be impossible for us as media monitoring or media evaluation company to read each terms and condition of all the websites in all over the world. It's impossible. to control everything. Anyway, and whatever, these two decisions are a victory for common sense, because the principle of internet keeps freedom. We have more flexibility for the MMO and MME and for the end user by using links, and this is good news. But we have not reached, again, the end of the story, because the right holders are scared about what could be a new copyright EU directive. And this is the last point which makes this year so decisive, the European Union public consultation. In Europe, copyright is covered by the European Directive of the year 2001-29 CE. What about press review and press clipping, media analysis and evaluation? The European Union studied it with this directive. So this is a big directive, a big book of more than 500 pages. So I haven't read it. I let my lawyers do it. But in this study, they just say, well, each country has its own law and can manage as it wants. But, you know, the European Union is aware that digital technology and the internet have totally reshaped the ways in which content is created, is distributed, and is accessed. That's why they have decided to work again on a new copyright directive, and then they launch a public consultation to ensure that the EU copyright regulatory framework stays fit for purpose in the digital environment to first support creation and innovation, tap the full potential of the single market, and foster growth and investment in our economy. The public consultation was really a success, more than 11,000 respondents. It's totally crazy. I don't know if they will read everything, but they have to give the result at the end of the year. So the next steps are reviewing and modernizing the EU copyright legislative framework. And I think that the right holders are scared about this, because I think that this new directive will create a new environment, not against the right holders, but with more free, like European Court decision decided. But as we are not only in Europe, that we have decided to collaborate with EMEC and FIBEP. Why? Because we think that it's important to have a voice at a European level. You know, EMEC and FIBEP decided to collaborate with Elan, which is a Brussels-based public affairs company, which is in the market since 1993. They formulate strategic recommendation on positioning vis-à-vis institutions. We have French FIBEP Federation has already worked with Elan, and we do a good work in the French territory. So we have decided to work with them. I don't want to give you the details, but the most important thing is, of course, to monitoring and to follow legal and political development and copyright issues in the next 2 years, and building a relationship with decision makers. What does it mean? It's just lobbying, you know, to meet them, to expose what do we think, what would be a fair market with fair use and a fair price. But as we are not only in Europe, I let Nikki Daniel from Moreover presenting Right Knowledge Exchange Project.
Good afternoon, everybody. So as Christoph said, I'm Nikki Daniel from Moreover Technologies. We are a UK and US-based content aggregator. So I've been working closely with Christoph and with AMEC, FIBEP and PDLN. And for those of you that don't know what PDLN is, Christoph is going to present on that next. So it's the Press Database and Licensing Network. So what we've been doing together, so that's AMEC, FIBEP and PDLN, is relaunching the Rights Knowledge Exchange. What the Rights Knowledge Exchange is a database of content for copyright. So what I'm frequently asked in my role at Moreover is a client's come along and said, we want content from Italy or from Spain or from France. What are the copyright rules in those particular countries? And so what this database is a fantastic tool for members of PDLN, FIBEP and AMEC to go into and find out what the relevant copyright laws are in those countries. So first of all, is there a copyright law? What does it cover? Does it cover print? Does it cover online? How are fees calculated? What are the relevant fees in those countries? What factors are taken into consideration, i.e. organisation size, volume of content being monitored, etc. So it really is a fantastic tool for us to go in, educate ourselves on what the relevant copyright laws are in different countries, and then be able to give our clients very quick turnaround in terms of what's going on in different countries. So the Rights Knowledge Exchange itself, as I said, it's a collaboration between AMEC, FIBEP and PDLN. AMEC and FIBEP working on behalf of media monitoring organisations and PDLN working on behalf of publishers. So there's a process that we go through in order to gather and verify the data that has been provided to make sure that the data we're giving you in the Rights Knowledge Exchange is correct and accurate at that time. So the first thing we did was approach a number of media monitoring organisations and licensing bodies and say, this is a questionnaire, could you please fill it out and let us know what the relevant rights are in your particular country or for the content that you provide to your clients. So that questionnaire was then sent out to those bodies. We got the results back in, and then through all three organisations that I previously mentioned, we went through and verified the data that was given to make sure that it was accurate. The end result being the data that will be displayed in the Rights Knowledge Exchange. So in terms of where we're currently at with the Rights Knowledge Exchange project, 56 organisations were approached in 36 countries. So far, we have got live and accurate data from 28 countries. Our goal by this point was to have 30, so we're nearly there. The reason we haven't quite reached our goal at the moment is that the verification process is important and it takes time. Making sure that all the data that the various agencies gives us is accurate is obviously quite key. So our goal at the moment is to launch this service by the end of this month with the data that we have, and then speed up the process for verifying the other agencies for whom we've received data but haven't yet verified that it's accurate. And then from there, we will then approach countries that maybe aren't represented by AMEC, FIBEP and PDLN and see if we can build up this database and have a really great place for us to all go to, just a one-stop shop that you can say to your client, yes, you want content from that country, this is the relevant copyright law, this is what you might want to consider will be a very expensive thing to do, so maybe reduce the number of recipients receiving the content, maybe just take print content and not online content from a specific country, and try and give them a really quick turnaround time in terms of them saying they want content and you saying this is what the laws are in that particular country. So that is the Rights Knowledge Exchange in itself.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Your English is better than mine. You will present me your teacher. I want to finish with, I was last week at the PDLN Congress. We are invited, of course. We can't be member because to be member of the PDLN, you have to represent publishers. So the PDLN, since 1912, they want to create an international license. It's a very long process. And why an international license? Well, I think we can summarize with one question. Would your company benefit benefit from an international license. We have done a survey with this question to the EMEC and FIBEP members, and 76% of the respondents said yes, but with a lot of comments, of course. I want something easy to use. I want fair price, pay-per-view, pay-per-click, one-stop shop agreement, one fee, one standard. Such license would provide some peace of mind and save valuable time, of course. But really, people say we want something simple to work with, simple to use it, and with a simple business model. So the PDLN represents 29 publisher licensing organizations in 19 countries. It exists since 2008, and the aim of PDLN is to protect and promote the interest of publishers in media monitoring service. What is the story? The end, when I started to work for Kantar Media, they approached us and they asked us, what about an international license? And we said, yes, this is a good idea. And they presented in June in Stockholm a draft of what could be such license. But the draft wasn't very interesting. It was really an NLA model license, and such NLA model can't suit, for example, in Italy, in Spain, or even in France. So we have decided, EMEC decided to launch a survey at the end of the year. We presented the result of the survey about the international licensing content in April during a webinar. And the webinar was like, you know, a little bomb, because we said, well, your license, this is a good idea, but you have to respect fair price, the local price, because a Spanish stakeholder won't pay what pays, for example, a client in Germany or in England. This is common sense. And we ask for fair use, I mean for flexibility by using the content. If we have to scan it, well, we will scan it. And fair market, I mean everyone has to pay. And last week, then I was in Madrid, and they presented a compromise which takes into account these 3 points: fair price, fair use, and fair market. So we will create, the next steps are, first, we will create a new survey with a lot of questions, because we have to show value to the publisher, to right organization, making negotiation easier. And in the steps 2, we will provide survey feedback by September and define consistent needs and definition across stakeholder groups. So this is really important. We work on it with FIBEP, and the survey which will be done with EMEC will be done too with FIBEP. But the most important thing, the most important information I heard in Madrid was the following one. You know, I spoke with a lot of Spanish people, and they all told me that Spain won't win football World Cup. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and thank you for your attention. So do you have any questions? Yeah, Jeremy. Oh.
Thank you, Christophe. It looks like we're making good progress, certainly in the way that we're kind of organised and collaborating with FIBEP, and that's good news. Do you think we're actually making real progress with the PDLN? Because I presented at in Lisbon and in Dublin, I think. And that was some years ago now. I gave the same presentation, and I gave the same presentation because nothing had changed from one year to the next. And I kind of made that point to them quite strongly. You know, they talk a really good game, but then nothing happens. Do you get the sense that things are changing?
Yes, because they think that you speak about the international license.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all know that we don't use a lot of international content. This is a small part of each business. And that's why I think it is not really their priority. But I think it is important to create this international license. And, we have this step. And after, the next step will be to create terms and conditions, international terms and conditions. But it takes time because they represent publishers, and the publishers have their own thoughts about all these things, and that's why we have to convince them that it's worth it. Even if I used to say that we are not the bride of the year, we won't save the press by our own. So we agree to play the game and to pay copyright, but with a fair price environment. And they will earn a little more money, but just a little, because again, this is a small part of the business.
Can I, just add to that, I think that it's imperative that we do sort this out, because we're increasingly being asked to provide global services to our clients.
Yeah.
As PR globalizes, we're increasingly becoming international businesses. But this is a bit of a barrier to us providing a good service. But I wonder whether we can't use the two cases you talked about to our benefit, because our clients are also demanding more signpost type data rather than just lists of clips. So if we can point them at online content and just and present an overview, telling them what's important to them, maybe that's the way around a lot of this mess.
Yes, that's right. The two courts' decision help us to do our job in a global scale, and but we all know that in a lot of countries there is no copyright legislation, and in a lot of countries providers use international content without paying copyright because it's history, because they have their own law. So it's not really a barrier. In France we use German content. We have an agreement with PMG, but this is a global agreement with no real barriers, and it gives a lot of flexibility, and even more flexibilities than in Germany. They accept it. So they are flexible. In my point of view, barriers don't really exist, because we all do press clipping with international content, and sometimes even without authorization, and because they can't control us. And again, there is a lot of countries where you have no rule, and that's why in this competition field we have to be on the same level. Daniel.
First, I want to say both to you, Christophe, and to Nikki, that the work that both of these two, particularly I have to say Christophe, in terms of leading this whole copyright communication with the EU, which he's been doing behind the scenes for all of us for the past few years. Thank you very much for that. The presentation that Christophe gave at the PDLN in front of all of their organizations, they sat back. It was an eye-opener for them to see from Kantar's perspective what the difference was in the percentages of their revenue that was going to copyright, what that was going to royalty. The disparity in the different regional organizations in terms of what their percentage that they were getting really set them back. And the last thing that I want to point out is the meeting that Christophe chaired with Andrew Hughes from the NLA, and we had Susanna
Sheka from CEDRO, which is the right organization, and PMG, Olivier Grassi, Germany, and that's all.
We had Spain. We had Spain and
yes, Spain,
CFC.
Cedro, and Sandra Chastanet from CFC,
Yeah.
France.
And I think to Jeremy's point, the two cases certainly played into it, but as Christoph pointed out, the NLA, the PDLN, the proposal that they came back with indicated, to me anyway, more of a compromise in terms of the position that they were taking than I've ever seen. They were actually saying pretty much, and that's why step 2 of the survey is up there, they were basically saying, listen, help us tell the publishers that there is revenue here so that we can go to them and get them to get off some of their demands about end user registrations and those kinds of things. They actually are willing to discuss those things now.
Yeah, you are right. We are really in a crossroad, and the next 2 years will be very important in a copyright point of view with this new directive. And I think that the PDLN understands it. It's easier to speak with them than it was 5 years or 6 years ago. Another last question? So, thank you everybody, and like we say in France, bon appétit.